Well, we're now going to turn this meeting over to Dr. Liz Walker. Welcome and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure. I actually had a few slides that I'd love to share. Would that be possible if I could
Yeah.
put up my desktop or screen here?
Yes, yes, you go right ahead.
Excellent. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Dr. Liz Walker. I came out and presented, I believe, in April of this year as well, but in acknowledgement that maybe some of you were not here then, or maybe are new to your positions, I'll just do a brief introduction. I'm a toxicologist by training. I've been working on what I call building wildfire smoke readiness or resiliency in North Central Washington for over a decade now. My work and interest in this area really started with regards to air quality and health. A lot of our region in North Central Washington do have year-round air quality issues, which is somewhat surprising. It's certainly surprising for me to learn. Wildfire smoke is obviously the most dramatic and largest of the exposures that any of us experience, but many of our regions also have poor solutions for dealing with organics like orchard disposal waste, with regards to silviculture and land clearing operations, people firewizing their properties and homes now. There's often a lot of thinning and trimming involved with that. And those materials are often most readily and easily burned. And wood smoke is a big issue in a lot of our area, and we often see moderate to unhealthy for sensitive groups air quality for the larger part of the winter. So as wildfire smoke has become a bigger issue and more on our radar in the last several years, I just do like to acknowledge that, unfortunately for us, that's on a backdrop of some fairly high air pollution that we're already experiencing in other parts of the year. And that's both relative to Washington State, when I say fairly high, as well as the West as well. So in April, I sort of spent some time talking about resources that were available to you as school nurses and other staff at your school that the Washington Department of Health has developed with regards to children's activity and air quality. We talked about some tools for building wildfire smoke readiness at the schools, and I've included those slides and those links for your reference in this slide deck. So again, if that's handy again to keep it at your fingertips, or for those of you that are new, those are still in the slide deck. But I just wanted to take a little bit of time. The intention of me coming back was to do a little bit of a recap on the wildfire smoke season. And I hope to do that in a somewhat interactive way with most of you, because and so I'll just acknowledge this. So I like to put up this slide as part of my introduction. Everything I've learned has been in partnership with lots of other folks in this region. Again, I've been grateful for the last decade as wildfire smoke has sort of grown in concern, and in thinking about building smoke-ready communities, trying to figure out, who are the agencies and entities that are responsible for doing that. It's a really complex mix of folks who are responsible for protecting our air quality, who are responsible for protecting our health, who are responsible for protecting our forests. And by protecting, I mean both making sure that they are healthy through things like prescribed fire, as well as putting out fires when we have wildfire, and doing land management in general. So it's a really phenomenally rich group of interdisciplinary folks that I've been grateful to learn with in this work. And I'll just note, I'm based in Winthrop, Washington, and Okanagan County. And in that decade, a lot of my efforts have been in building a community-based organization. So we've been trying to utilize nonprofit sector to try to, as I said, figure out how we keep both our communities and our forests healthy and safe into a future that is unfortunately likely to see even more wildfire and more smoke for the foreseeable time. All right. So that brief recap, and I'd love, again, put your hands up at any time and please contribute. But what I plotted here was, so PM 2.5 or particulate matter 2.5 microns in sizes or smaller are these little soot particles, teeny tiny, that we're most concerned about with regards to the pollutants in smoke. So that's what we measure at our regulatory monitors and with other low-cost sensors when we're talking about smoke and air quality. And then I hope that all of you are familiar with the Air Quality Index, which uses this color-coded system and some good buckets of numbers to indicate what the air quality is in a given day and what the sort of health or behavioral changes we might need to make in response to that. So green is good and healthy. That's 0 to 50. Yellow is 50 to 100. That's moderate, meaning air quality is starting to degrade. And then the next bucket is 101 to 150, which is orange, unhealthy for sensitive groups. And then once we're at 151, that's red, and that's unhealthy for everybody. We have some more categories where we go into very unhealthy and then hazardous. But honestly, especially when I'm talking to people responsible for children, children fall into a sensitive groups category. So as soon as we're in like high yellow or orange, that's when we need to start paying attention to air quality and thinking about keeping kids safe. So this tile plot here is taking basically one tiny little thread for each day of the year and reporting the air quality in the color. And this one buckets at the county level. So there you may have more than one monitor in your county. And I'm sorry, Douglas County, you usually respond off of Wenatchee's monitors with this EPA website that I'm using. But I'd be happy to go dig out some because you do have more granular data than this. But this is our at a glance for today. So basically what I want us all to take a look here is that this was a pretty darn good year for our region for wildfire smoke. The Pioneer Fire obviously being our largest and longest and most severe event that had definitely some local impacts on the communities of Stehekin and Manson and Chelan as well. But you know, I imagine many of you on this call have seen the opening of school coincide with some pretty bad wildfire smoke. As far as I can understand from the data, as well as having lived through it, that was not necessarily our experience this year. There were some communities that might have had a fairly limited amount of smoke, again, a few days relative to weeks and weeks as we've had in the past. But I'd love for anyone to raise their hand because, again, we don't have monitors everywhere. And this data doesn't necessarily reflect every single community's experience. But could I get a hand if anyone did indeed deal with things like wildfire smoke and adjusting children's activity in their first few weeks of school for maybe more than a couple of days? I don't know that I can actually see everyone's hands while I'm presenting. So Kathy, maybe if you can see if we have any hands or in the chat. Okay.
Just a past, Sarah's reporting that in the past they have, and Sarah's out in Cooley, Heartline, and Wilson Creek areas.
Okay. Yes, I'm certain that in past years, I'm aware that many of our schools have had pretty severe wildfire smoke that they had to wrestle with for not just days, but weeks on end. And so I guess while we can all breathe a deep sigh of relief that this was not one of the issues that you had to deal with among many others this year at school opening, I do want to highlight that it is sort of an experience of we all got lucky this year. And this is not necessarily in any way indicative of what we're likely to experience in future years either. But I do want us to appreciate and celebrate when we do get relatively lighter wildfire smoke years and a break from it. Because if you can recall back to when you had something different than this and severe wildfires and wildfire smoke, it can be a lot to deal with, not just physically, but also mentally, socially, economically, a big taxing, very taxing on communities. So I think with that, this is the reference again, as I said, to the Washington State Department of Health activities for guide for air quality and children's health. I don't know that anyone got a chance to pull this out and utilize it this year, but I'm always very, very interested in your feedback about the utility of this guide It is typically revised every single year, and your input is extraordinarily valuable for making it as relevant and helpful as possible. So I sit on the committee that helps do these rewrites, so I'm always very interested about whether or not this is a useful tool for you. And one of the big things that was updated in the last version of this year was a lot of emphasis about indoor air quality monitoring and improving indoor air quality as well. So again, as I said, getting a light wildfire smoke year is more of an anomaly than a norm. This graph on the right here is from the Washington Department of Ecology, and it shows our top 10 counties in Washington state by average cumulative smoke score. You can ignore the highlighting on Douglas and Chelan here. This was pulled from somewhere else where we were focusing on those areas. But I do want to show that, Douglas, Okanagan, and Chelan are our top 3 counties with regards to exposure to smoke in the state. So again, smoke preparedness is really something important for us to pay attention to. I also want to note, some of you may have seen this data already or heard about this report, but Dr. Nayak Bindu at Confluence Health has been looking at pediatric asthma visits and wildfire smoke for the last several years, just within the Confluence Health database that she has accessible to her. Not only do they see increased emergency department visits during wildfire smoke for kids and asthma, but they're also seeing disparity with an increased rate for Hispanic and Latino children. So this has become a bigger issue that we're really taking a closer look at. Dr. Bindu Nayak and others are involved in trying to do some targeted outreach to especially communities with these kids with Hispanic, Latino, and trying to do more asthma planning and help them make the connections, as well as provide potential for keeping kids safe in their homes and other environments so that they have access to clean indoor air during wildfire smoke. I just, again, want to emphasize, though, we're relatively small populations out in our area, and sometimes detecting signals like this in data require hundreds of thousands of people. That's not the case, and this is really a result of the fact that our wildfire smoke can be so severe that we are able to see this impact on pediatric asthma. So I think just in my last couple minutes with you, this is always a little bit tricky. When it's smoky, this is something that's really, right in front of us, and at other times of the year where it's not something that we're really having to be too concerned about, it can be sort of difficult to put our heads back into this space. But we have a huge opportunity, and there's a lot of national attention to this in thinking about schools as playing a major role in community smoke preparedness. And so that's not only just making sure that when kids are at school, they're safe with regards to being indoors and safe, clean air environments, as well as that their outdoor activity is being modulated properly, but also opportunities like classroom learning, as well as take-home learning, and acknowledging that schools are a tremendous place for shifting behaviors and culture around utilizing kids and their families as a place where we can do things like adapt to wildfire smoke. So as I mentioned, I participate in a number of different groups locally as well. And there are a number of different funding opportunities and interests in studies right now in using our area, again, because of our high exposures, to really try to develop schools and specific leaders within those schools. And guess what? You all have been designated as those school leaders with regards to thinking about kids and smoke. But trying to come up with some strategies, both to get a good baseline on where schools are currently in thinking about wildfire smoke and their kids. Are they, utilizing materials that have been developed with regards to helping you do that and learn together? And then really trying to push the needle with regards to, as I said, using schools to but not just teach kids, but teach the educators as well as families about how to live more healthfully with wildfire smoke. So these are some of the questions that come up. And if you wouldn't mind doing a show of hands or talking at all, I'd love to know, because I think we're going to be trying to develop some surveys and potentially with the goal of having better resources, whether that's locally placed staff that would be on call and available to you, or additional one-on-one training or online training for you, to really help make sure that these tools, that you feel comfortable utilizing these tools. So the first bit's around, there's been a lot of access for schools to use purple air sensors or other indoor sensors to look at your indoor and outdoor air quality. If anyone on the phone is willing to either raise your hand or offer a comment, I'd love to know if you currently have a purple air sensor at your school currently that you're using to monitor outdoor or indoor air quality. And Annalisa, I know you do. I know them. I know how the Met Tau's utilizing it, and I'm curious for anybody else if you'd be willing to maybe just come off mute and talk about sort of the rest of those questions as well. Sarah, I see you're off mute.
Yes, hi. We just got a purple air monitor this last year. We were kind of a blank spot on the map here in Wilson Creek, and the closest air monitors were probably 30 to 40 miles away. So now we have one, and it's been so great to know, because we'd get these alerts, through the news to say, oh, there's some kind of, last winter we were getting alerts that there was stagnant air warnings, and we had no idea what our actual air quality was, and since we're so far out here. So that has been a really great change for us. We had multiple people help set it up, including our maintenance and tech, IT departments, and then myself. And so we let our office staff are the ones that kind of monitor that, so they know like whether they need to call indoor recess. So that's available to them, so they can make that decision from the main office. And then we were hoping to get another purple air monitor for my other school district, Cooley Heartline, because they are a blank spot on the map as well. And so I had reached out to Lena at the ESD, and she said they were working on getting us one of those or sensors as well there. Yeah, so as far as I know, we were working on our current air quality in our school district this year in Wilson Creek. We just got an HVAC system. Our building is so old, we did not have one at all. So our air quality was terrible indoors. Sickness was just so hard. Once one kid got sick, it was just a waterfall, and there was like no stopping it. So I look forward to much decrease in our illness this year, as we are like, the air quality is improved inside as well. And then outdoors, I appreciate that data that's coming in.
Thank you, Sarah. That's fantastic. Yeah, and that's, obviously there are huge benefits to having good indoor air quality that extend far beyond wildfire smoke, as you mentioned.
So Dr. Walker, just so you know, Lena is our team leader. You've met her in the past, and she's usually here at these meetings. But we do have an agreement with the EPA team to bring in the purple air monitors. They're paying for them through a grant and providing them to us to distribute to schools who are able to set one of these up. So please, if you don't have one for your district, not only are they great tools like Sarah's describing for giving you data, but they're also great tools for students to use as well. They can use that data for science projects and assist with that monitoring as well. So if you do not have a purple air monitor in your school, and we have done a mapping, so we actually already mapped out the schools who did not have one, and I know Lena's been in touch with your superintendents, and we'll take a look to make sure that we are getting responses so that you do get one set up near you.
That's fantastic, Kathy. And again, I'll just sort of open the conversation a little bit more with regards to whether you feel adequately sort of aware of those tools. Sarah, you mentioned that it was maintenance staff and office staff and yourself and others who were involved in putting that up. it's I know at Liberty Bell, the athletic director was the one who has sort of been designated as the main point of contact for looking at that air quality monitor and then making recommendations about athletic practices or game rescheduling or otherwise. I think it, becomes really critical for just making sure that it's someone's designated responsibility, and that they're able to have the time protected to incorporate that into their workflow. On a daily basis. So whoever that is. And again, I know that you have a million things on your plates, but certainly just attending to making sure that that's happening at your school, or, asking around is so important. And we really, really, especially for kiddos that have respiratory issues. Are there any questions or otherwise?
So Liz, I'll just add, if there are new nurses on the line, because some of the nurses are new to school nursing this year, and they may not know, you might not know that you have, whether or not you actually have a monitor for your school, because somebody else might have installed it or be managing it. So if you're not sure if you have one or not, just send us a note and we'll help you, so that we can find it for you and let you know where it is, and then you can find out who's monitoring it, and or if you don't have one, we can help you with that as well.
Wonderful, Kathy. Thanks to you and others at the ESD for your leadership on that.
Oh, they're really great tools, really, really helpful for the district,
Definitely.
especially as Sarah's describing, when you're out somewhere far away from anybody else and you don't have any way to measure the air quality. It just gets worse and worse. So
Sarah, not to put you on the spot again, but I'm curious, do you know if you're monitoring your indoor air quality as well?
I don't believe we are currently, but actually that's a great question. I don't think we have changed that. We did monitor it briefly for our IT department when he was working on setting it up. He decided to monitor his office for a short period of time, and that was a terrible discovery. I'm just going to say that with all the tech in there. Apparently that was before the HVAC system, so I would imagine it's improved now. But no, we are not currently, that I'm aware of, but I need to ask and double check that.
Okay. As I mentioned, look, sort of probably phase 2, although if we can implement them both at once for schools, that's really great as well. But obviously, and what Sarah's describing, I'm sure sounds familiar to many of you with regards to suspicions about, due to the age and condition of your buildings, a lot of our school buildings, without active air filtration or supplemental air filtration, there's no guarantee that the indoor air quality is going to be much better than the outdoor air quality. So that sort of becomes a really critical next step, especially once investments have been made in HVAC systems and otherwise, to provide some verification that they're doing what we want and don't need any additional tweaking or otherwise.
So Dr. Walker, one of the things that we were talked about earlier this morning was the new Washington State health report. So they just put out the 2024 report, State of the Health of Washington State. And schools are actually one of the topic areas that are going to be, at least are recommended that the state consider improvements for, and some of those, well, actually all of them really focusing on environmental health for the older buildings, particularly around air quality, internal air quality in the buildings, supporting HVAC expenses, continuing to do that, to offer those things. And then also the lead in water issue. So, it's interesting that we're finally the Department of Health is able now to kind of get back on track with some of these issues that were sort of tabled a few years ago, and they're now putting a lot more emphasis on these things. And, as Sarah's describing, for example, that the air quality, internal air quality, Grant County Health District has now got an environmental specialist who will be going out to the schools and actually doing some of those types of assessments. within the school buildings to look at what is the internal air quality. So at least it's not going to be ongoing, but at least it will give people a snapshot of what's happening in the school buildings, so that some of those issues can be addressed.
Wonderful. In an environment of, competing for resources and otherwise, I will say that it's great to hear that likely at the state level, as well as the Environmental Protection Agency has been made a lot of funding available. So my contact information will go out, or if you want to connect with Kathy or otherwise, there are funding sources available for things like upgrading school buildings that are coming out. So we'd be happy to help connect with those resources. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your work.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Walker. Thanks for joining us today. Okay, so in just in these last couple of minutes, I just wanted to make sure I'm going to put out a couple of more resources. So these are just to make you aware in case you haven't tapped into these before, but for oral care, whether it's your teeth or your gums or anything related to oral care, another resource for you is the ABCD programs. Those programs are statewide, and they are managed through our LHJs. So ABCD for Okanagan County and Chelan and Douglas counties is all run out of the Chelan Douglas Health District. That's where the ABCD coordinator is. And so you can find her information on the Chelan Douglas website, and she does cover all 3 counties. And then Grant County also, their health district has an ABCD program. And those are really geared for your youngest kids. So those are young kids, and they do assessments and they do trainings, and they will come out and talk to your kids about their teeth. And the other program is the Colgate Bright Smiles program. Now, Bright Smiles is a program that provides educational information, and it also provides free toothbrushes and toothpaste, but it only covers at this point, it used to cover kindergarten and first grade classrooms. Now it's really, I think they had their funding decreased. So they only cover now kindergarten classes. But if you have kindergarten classes in your school, you might want to take a look at that program, because all those products are free. So they'll send them to you in a big box. And usually I encourage people to start filling out those applications like by April, February, March. You're really looking for next year often. You certainly can fill out an application, and there's a link there to their webpage. So you could fill out an application for those things, but what you might find is you're just going to get a response back at this time of the year saying that they've given all their kits out, and when you want to look at reapplying for next year to get some boxes of toothbrushes. So those are really great tools. So some more things to add to your Delta Dental work efforts. And I know some of you who have access to different programs in your areas, like through Columbia Valley Community Health, for example, or through Grant County Public Health Center, are having folks come in and doing oral assessments of your students. So those are really great services if you have them available to help you. They're fantastic. Before we log off, we have just a few minutes. Ben, do you have any input for us? Ben actually attended the vision program that Dr. Pearson put on this what was that, like last weekend, Ben, or the weekend before? Did you have any input on that?
Not a lot, just in that it just made me feel more fortunate that I get to have them come here, and that everybody on the there's a lot more participants in person from the other side, and they're all echoing the same thing that everybody feels, which is that it's a lack of accessibility, whether for them a lot of it is transportation and things like that, but they can get to, there's places that have appointments available, but they can't get to them. Whereas for, in our area and things like that, there's just not even places that have appointments for such a long time. So they're really working on it. That's what I found out, is that they got a lot of people working on this model that he's put together, Dr. Pearson, and they're moving forward with it, and they're working on trying to get more people like Dr. Pearson so that they can serve more kids. And so I'm hopeful that it's gonna grow and get better, that it's not gonna dead end or fizzle out.
Excellent, excellent. I'm so glad you were able to go to that. Dr. Pearson held kind of a statewide get together to talk about vision issues for children and how, as a state, we would be able to respond to those needs. And so for those of you who have used Dr. Pearson's services, you know, he does provide some mobile services throughout the state where he'll come out and perform eye examinations and assist in obtaining eyeglasses for students in need. So it's a wonderful service, and we are grateful to have him, but I know he's very limited, you know, I mean, he has limitations on how many districts he can get to per year, but he does a great job of getting around the state. So if you have not used his services in the past and you would like more information about his program, please ask, and we will help you know about how to connect with him and how to get that set up. So thank you for going to that program, Ben. I really appreciate it. Okay. Yes, it is amazing. Yes, it is really amazing. It's just such a neat thing to be able to get kids a pair of glasses. It's certainly needed.
One thing
So-
I would add was that I just came to my mind is it's really interesting to me that they're working with the University of Washington Technology Department. So one of the things they're working on is this new application that is going to be free for everybody that works with your phone and tracks eye movement and can tell, first of all, if a kid is wearing their glasses, and they're trying to make it so that a nurse would actually be able to tie into that information, see kids that are struggling or compliance with glasses to move forward from there too.
Very nice. Yeah, he's been working on that app for a while now. So I'm glad he's working with the UW so they can do some good research on that and actually help him move that forward. Okay. Any other questions before we log off for the day? All right. Well, we wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. We may not see some of you until after the holiday. So enjoy the Thanksgiving and stay safe in all the snow. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate all of you. Have a good day.